everyone, and welcome back to the LIC podcast. I am Hannah, and here we have Jose.
Hello, everyone.
And we also have Matt, per usual.
Hey.
Today, we watched The Babadook from 2014. This is a favorite horror movie of mine and Matt's. Jose, as usual, this is his first time seeing it, so I'll pass it over to Jose right off the bat. What are your thoughts?
Being a parent is hard.
Oh,
that is most certainly the moral of this story.
For context, none of us are parents.
Goodness gracious, yeah. And this movie just seals the deal in terms of my life decisions.
Me too, actually.
Goodness gracious, yeah. Not only do you have to deal with the potentiality that your kid might be on the spectrum, but also spirits. Come on, that's not fair.
It's very.
Also, little tidbit: why on earth is the Babadook only targeting poor women? You know, poor single mothers. Like, holy shit! Like, there's so many other people to haunt.
Yeah.
I think. Well, okay. Babadook monster. Thumbs up, thumbs down. What do you think?
As a design?
Yeah.
Wait, before you throw that out, I just
okay.
want to say
Okay.
poor single mothers probably weakest mental state.
Mm.
If you're talking
Oof, when it rains, it pours, doesn't it? Damn. I guess it is gonna rain tonight, huh? Like,
Oh,
yeah.
too soon.
Yeah,
Too soon.
He died 6 years ago.
Get
Everyone
over
needs
it.
to get over it. All right.
Okay.
Well, back to your question. Babadook
Yeah.
design. I thought he was really cool. I don't know if you remember, but I think, I mean, it kind of feels like they're a little cribbing actually, because do you remember the Whispermen from Doctor Who? From the 11th Doctor's. I think it was the Christmas special, or like it was the season finale of season 7, and these guys like called the Whispermen, who have no face, you know, except like teeth, grinding teeth, and like a top hat, and like they speak in rhyme, you know, like we are the Whispermen, and like they
and that's not the silence.
no, that's not the silence. No, those the Whispermen only appear in that one episode because they are controlled by the Great Intelligence, I think is the name of the guy. The only reason I bring it up is because the design is very, very reminiscent of like the black, like the dark black with the top hat and like the very scary white face kind of situation with the teeth and everything.
This is
Yeah.
2014 though. This probably came out before that.
No, this came out
It's
after.
Definitely
11th
after.
Doctor?
Yeah.
After, yeah, the 11th Doctor stopped
That's
his run
Matt
in
Smith, isn't it?
2013. Yeah,
Mm.
I know that for
Oh.
a fact because the 50th anniversary was on his last year, and that was in 2013 because Doctor Who came on the 63. Little Doctor Who trivia for anyone listening.
Just to
right now.
get
Just
us
full
off.
of facts
Yeah.
Get us
today.
started, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, that's interesting. Okay, but then there's the other half of the monster too, right? Like the I don't know,
spike
raven
hands and the-
form,
Well-
the specter
Well,
version.
that's just it. That's what we have to. We got to kind of break it into pieces because
Mm-hmm.
there's the illustration form of the Babadook, which I really like personally, and then there's like the real version that you actually see later in the movie.
Yeah. What was the name of that book written by Neil Gaiman? It's like a children's book, and it kind of was written in this. It's like there's like an animated movie for it, like Cornelia or something like that.
Oh, Coraline.
Coraline. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
that's a Neil Gaiman story?
Yeah, I believe so.
Oh, I
Yeah,
did not know that.
I believe so. But yeah, like the art design for
Similar.
that movie and like the Babadook's, especially the book section of it, was very, very reminiscent of
Mhm.
that.
I gotta
Yeah.
give credit to the illustrator of that because also in that illustration, the kid, the mom, the dog, the illustrations were just very, very cool, and I felt like they showed a lot of expression and a lot of emotion.
Yeah, once the book started coming true, I was quite on my toes in terms of how far is how far is like the predictions going to actually play out, right? Because she did kill the dog. Like, is she gonna go all the
Boo.
way?
Yeah, you're like
Yeah.
kids next, kids next.
Yeah. Honestly, I mean, if she already has the wherewithal to kill the fucking dog, it's like, I mean, and that dog did nothing. I mean, that kid's been hounding her ass the whole time. I mean,
Yeah. What did
It's
Bugsy
amazing
do?
the kid wasn't first.
yeah, seriously. I mean, it's only because the little dog was brave and tried to keep the kid safe. It's like, you know what? I'm gonna go handle your mom.
I mean, I don't know about.
And just like
all it
any
did was bark.
and just like any knee-sized dog, the moment he felt any resistance, he just stopped. He got quiet.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
Oh, I might have crossed the line here.
Yeah, Ron Howard.
I
That's
really
what
like
Bugsy
this
do.
movie though, from the perspective of the mixture of psychological and real world psychosis angle, you know?
Mm.
Like two things could be happening at the same time kind of situation.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm always really, really into that because again, it lets me in my mind play with, you know, where I want to draw the line. Like I can move the spectrum of what, you know, of believability or fantasticalness, you know, in any direction. And the movie is pliable enough to be able to accept it in any type of way. Because I can believe the fact that, you know, I can come from the position that this lady was possessed the entire time. And, you know, this kid bought this book off the black market, you know what I mean, online,
He
off
did
the
come
dark
up
web.
with a lot of shit off the
Yeah, I
internet.
mean, he bought that book off the dark web, you know what I mean? And she apparently has absolutely no idea what that kid. Again, she didn't ask what credit card he used to buy the fucking firecrackers off the internet, you know?
No, he said you bought them for me off the internet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she bought them for him.
Well,
Was she
that
possessed by the Babadook when she did that? I mean, like,
she just has this screaming kid, and he's like, "I want firecrackers." She's like, "Okay, here you go."
yeah.
I'm sure that's exactly what happened with the Mr. Babadook book too. You know,
See, I wonder about that because
Or he used her credit card, and then he was like, "You bought them for me."
okay,
I can
technically-
believe that this kid is gaslighting that mom when he said that. You know,
oh, you think so?
oh, 100%. You kidding me?
He knows how detached she is at that point.
Oh man, this
Mhm.
poor kid. Ragging on him. His mom's nuts.
He's nuts.
Well,
You know, it's a
You
bit of a
mean, well.
chicken. It's a bit of a chicken and or the egg kind of
Yeah.
situation there. It's like
They're both nuts, but who was nuts first?
because I mean, like the only individual who we can glean like background information from is Amelia, right? Is Amelia her sister
Yeah.
or Oscar's sister?
her sister.
Her sister. Okay.
Wait,
It-
Amelia? Isn't that Claire?
Claire. Sorry, Claire. I'm sorry.
I think.
Oh.
Amelia's
Amelia's the
his cousin. Her niece,
Oh,
Oh,
right?
that's
yeah.
Ruby, the little
Ruby.
girl.
Damn, I'm just fucking up
I
on the
think-
Who
name.
the hell is
entirely.
Amelia?
Maybe she's the neighbor, the older lady.
No, that's Gracie.
Then
Where'd we
forget
get
about
Amelia?
it. Forget it. My dumbass. Don't worry about it. So Claire, right? Her
Yeah,
sister.
Claire.
Okay. She, when they're speaking about it before she has that little spat with the lady, right, is talking about the fact that she used to be a writer. She seemed like she was aspirational about it, right? So it feels as though there were, in fact, happier times where she was at least more, you know, all put together.
Yeah, before
know.
the kid was born.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I wonder there. I mean, like, has she stopped doing that since the kid was born? You know, or like, is it like,
So
has the kid like turned a corner in terms of like negative development, and that's been, you know, chipping away at her?
my
'Cause-
impression is it's probably in the middle. Like I think probably since he was born on the day her husband died,
Mm-hmm.
she's probably always like detached herself from him because being around him is probably painful for her. Because it's like in the beginning when he like hugs around her neck, she says like, "Don't do that."
Yeah.
And I think that's normal. And the kid is clearly craving affection from his mother. I get the feeling he doesn't get very much. And then I still think he's on the spectrum. I refuse to drop that. And I think he's just getting like
100%.
his reactions and his getting into trouble and doing things that are causing her to pull him out of school and like apologize to people all the time probably have worsened that a lot.
Matt's silently guffawing at us calling him on the spectrum, but in my personal opinion, it's between saying that he's on the spectrum and he's got like developmental issues, or saying that he sucks. You know what I mean?
He's
It's
riddled
like-
with anxiety.
There's option 3 here. He has to worry about fighting the monster
Before
that's
it was
coming.
there though, before the monster was a thing, he didn't know what the Babadook was in the beginning of the movie.
But he knew he had to get ready.
He was already worried about a monster. He was riddled with anxiety. He was screaming and crying all the time. When they talked to the school, when she went to the school, they were like, he has had massive behavioral problems for a time.
It's hard fighting monsters.
So
It's before the monster showed up.
I mean, he knows he's got to get ready.
I think
no, that
being
seems-
on the spectrum would be kinder a kinder judgment for this boy at that point.
Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense because, I mean, it would then mean that he actively unleashed the Babadook because he's the one that picked the book. You know what I
He
mean?
didn't pick the book
He picked the book off the shelf.
off the shelf.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And then he said, "Yeah, it was my turn to pick the book. It's
Yeah.
like, so keep reading it." Right? So it's like, so I mean, if anything, it's his fault. You know, I mean,
Well, I'm somewhere in the middle here. I'm not trying to blame the kid. I'm just saying.
No,
that
clearly it was.
I just really don't think at any point in the movie he has acted like a normal kid. And normal is totally the wrong word. Not normal kid, but like, oh, I'm in trouble.
not not like him, not like Samuel. I mean, like we saw example of other children, right? I mean, and they socialized just fine. But at the same time, maybe maybe it runs in the blood a little bit, because his cousin Ruby, she was very mean to him.
She was a
know?
bitch.
Incredibly
Yeah.
mean.
Absolutely mean. But at the same
Yeah. Deserve
time,
the broken nose in 2 places.
one has to wonder, right? It's like, how much has she had to deal with? You know what I mean? Her
Her
cousin
life
Samuel
looks
just
cushy.
being a fucking weirdo,
Yeah. Well, and she has shared every birthday with him, so she's probably around that quite a bit.
Yeah, exactly. And he seems like the kind of kid who is monopolizing in terms of attention.
Oh, yeah.
He showed that 100% in the park where he just couldn't shut up while Ruby was just playing in the corner being like,
Quietly.
"Oh, here goes Samuel again."
Oh, poor Ruby. Her lucky Ruby. She doesn't have to worry about training to fight monsters.
Yeah, that's because no demon will want to get near her because she's too kind of a kid. All right?
No,
She
yeah,
wasn't-
see, demon. Okay. So, okay, my little headcanon about the Babadook is
Okay.
that if the Babadook exists as like this external thing, right?
Mhm.
At least in part, maybe it's like this demon that feeds off of infanticide. And like you were saying right at the beginning of the podcast, maybe they targeted what's the mom's name? Maybe the mom's name is Amelia.
Oh, God.
That's what we would.
Is it?
One check.
Yeah.
We have to start the podcast over.
Everybody talk amongst yourselves.
Yep, Amelia is the
Amelia,
name.
okay.
Yes.
See, I knew I didn't just come up with that name out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I was immediately suspicious.
So maybe the Babadook attaches itself to women that are already on the brink of, mental...
Murdering their children.
Yeah, for other reasons, along with having to deal with your dead husband, being a single mom, taking care of all that all by yourself.
Working a shit job.
Okay,
Yeah, and-
so if we're going to believe that the Babadook is an external figure, right? She trapped it in the basement. Okay. How?
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. Well, see,
Is it a
but-
situation where he's just biding his time? He's like, you're gonna slip up again.
Oh, for
that
sure
kid's
he
probably just gonna
agreed
be a
to
shit.
live in the basement.
Yeah, I don't know exactly because
Keep
like
him in there.
there's the whole other half of this movie is like the Babadook sort of represents a more than physical manifestation of her bitterness,
Mhm.
right? And
Oh,
so
now he's
like,
weak.
huh?
And now he's weak.
Yeah, or like she just has to keep it in check, right? There's this repeated line of you can't get rid of the Babadook. Like everybody always, or like people especially that have lost their husbands and had to go through all this trauma, like everybody has their Babadook and they have to keep it in check, otherwise it eats them alive, and then eventually they break and start hurting people around them or themselves.
Right. Okay. So the Babadook is external, but at the same time manifested by the traumas that she's, it's like a composite of both things.
It does seem to be both, right?
Mhm.
Like almost everything in this movie, it's like right down the middle.
Yeah.
Or we could go the other way with it and say that he's not third party. And that
It's the police.
it's a police.
Those creepy ass police and Detective Babadook.
All Babadooks are bastards.
And because we spend all of our time with her, so this could be interpreted as we see this movie through the main character's eyes.
Right.
So if she's just losing it and there is no Babadook and that's some sort of layer she's put between her and everything that's happening, her son maybe is just afraid of her.
Oh, 100%. That's what I said I liked about the movie is the fact that you can take it 100% to the mundane world and be like, this woman is beginning the burgeonings of her schizophrenia, right? And perhaps her child also has mild, a mild case of schizophrenia or something, something to that degree. And it's manifesting at the exact same time and causing her to begin to have both paranoid and auditory and hallucinatory hallucinations.
Well, it could be too that her son is not having any sort of hallucination, but the stress that he's experiencing from the way that she's being
Hmm.
is like he's putting up a mental barrier and creating a monster so that he doesn't think that his mom is have to think that his mom is this way and that she would hurt him. And that could explain why he's so forgiving as well.
I didn't quite understand what was the significance of his not drinking the pill, like,
Oh, at the end,
yeah.
if we like follow this line of like he can actually like he Samuel knows there's a monster somehow,
Okay.
and he can tell that it's going to get inside of his mom because
Mm-hmm.
his mom's like weak for it or some,
Mm-hmm.
like, so then it's at that point in the movie that he can see it in her, and he knows, if I take this then I won't be able to fight the Babadook and I'll probably get killed, and then my mom will probably get killed, so I need to stay awake tonight because tonight's the night where I gotta get my baseball backpack and my dart gun and fucking we're going to town, me and the Babadook. That's
Mm-hmm.
what's happening.
Okay. Okay, I get that. I can see that. Yeah, he did such a quick job of tying her up once she fell over. I do wonder how long she was out. You know.
He's good with
When I
ropes and
saw
stuff.
that, I don't know. When I saw that scene and the way she was moving around, I was like, she doesn't look very thoroughly tied. And she got her own hands out.
Well, I mean, but for a 6-year-old kid, I mean, it was still pretty good. I mean, it took
He did
Yeah, but
his
you
best.
took
it.
your time to compliment it when it didn't even work.
I mean, yeah, because it took. I mean, just because at the end it didn't work, it doesn't mean that it didn't look good. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't think that's the purpose of a knot is to look good.
but he's okay. Well, but he is 6, right? I mean, like we do have to draw the lines of like craftsmanship when it comes to tying someone down.
I'm not expecting anything major, but I'm also not going to be like, good job on that specific thing
I
when
mean,
it
it was a
didn't
good
work.
attempt. There.
A good attempt. I'll give you a good attempt.
Yeah. I mean, it looked like he really did try his best to like cover all sides. You know.
Pretty good for a 6-year-old kid with, I mean, where do you learn to tie knots? Like magic VHSs or something?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I like dancing in the middle of being like, she could be having a mental breakdown that then causes her to see, cockroaches coming out of holes in her refrigerator, you know. And yeah, I don't know.
Which is also super related to schizophrenia, is seeing bugs.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's not outside of the realm of possibility really, because just like with the news story that she was listening to, it doesn't sound like it couldn't happen, you know, to the degree that it almost sounds premonitioned, like in terms of her situation right then and there.
Yeah, I don't even know if that news story was real or if that was her mind doing a thing because she had seen the book because it was exactly.
I like to believe that if we're going to think that perhaps there is like a middle ground between the supernaturality and the breakdown of mental psyches, perhaps it could very well be that that news story is real and it showcases the fact that the Babadook is actually a widespread issue
Mm-hmm.
in the world, you know, and it isn't, obviously to the greater public, no one's going to take the idea that a Babadook spirit is the thing that's causing this rash of infanticides,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, it is happening to the degree that it is being portrayed in the news, right? So I think that for the sake of the world building, you know,
Mhm.
I would take it uh, literally and say that there really is you know, a news thing out there, because then it extends the problem past her, right? There is like this isn't just the only home that is dealing with these kind of problems. there could be very well be a whole bunch of other single mothers who are actively doing this fight with this Babadook creature, and
Mhm.
some of them might have more than one kid. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Well, it could
So,
be literally one Babadook. Like there could be one in existence, and that's the house he just came from.
oh, there you go. See, that's also a very good thing where he just just swoops in from like
Mm.
he just finished that house, so now he can stop pussyfooting with the with the
Yeah.
calls and the knocking on the door and stuff like that. And he's like, "Now I'm coming in."
I'm coming in this.
Yeah, I feel like there wasn't any. That's one thing I really like about this movie is I don't think there's any like wasted lines of dialogue. Like even in the brief when the television is flashing from scene to scene to scene, everything is sort of like a semi reference to something that's going on in the movie.
Right.
I
You
don't know if
know,
you.
I wonder if the movie was based in 2014. Like
Mhm.
because it's very difficult. It's always very interesting how, for the most part nowadays, after like a certain time period, like if it isn't for technology, it's really difficult to tell what year something happens in. Like I'm like looking around to see
Yeah.
like what is like a defining thing that can tell me like, okay,
It's our only anchor.
is it like past 2005? Is it like, do I see anybody with like a smartphone? You know what I mean?
A
'Cause
tube TV, 2000.
Is it
yeah,
New York? Are there
exactly.
Twin
I was
Towers?
like, yeah, because I looked at her TV. I was like, ooh, that is an old TV. Like,
Mhm.
no wonder she can't fall asleep. Ooh, her eyes must just be strained from this. Like,
Just the whine, the
oh yeah.
I don't know though. I feel like they do give you subtle references. Like it's a nice house she lives in. I assume they lived in that house before her husband died, but I feel like they give us subtle hints that money's tight.
I'm sure it is. She's
Single mom.
Keeps
right.
missing shifts.
Yeah.
It's not good.
I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean, her supervisor's on her ass. So
the lack of sleep. Like, I don't think she was lying about not sleeping.
No.
Right?
Not with, did you
Probably.
see that kid in the first half of the movie?
Yeah. Yeah, I was so
He was like
pleased
in
that.
the middle of the night wrapped around her neck.
Yeah. I love that we got to show Jose the birth of the why can't you just be normal meme.
oh god, yeah.
He got to see it. And he's like, oh.
Yeah, my eyes was just like widened as I was like, oh, I get it now.
Isn't it so funny that you won't recognize either of the people until you've seen the meme scene, and then you're
Mhm.
like, oh, this is the meme.
Yeah. I mean, the kid did look very familiar, but at the same time, it's like,
Because they both have
you've seen one
distinct
kid, you've seen a
looks.
million of them, so it's like,
They're not special.
yeah. So what did you guys like the most about the movie, Hannah?
I love a ton about this movie. I think its pacing is phenomenal. I think this is just one of those movies that you don't get bored during, which is a major. That's a lot of points from me. I feel like they do the spooky scenes really well. There's nothing that's just done really terribly. And my other like lasting favorite thing about this movie is I like movies that I experience with the main character. Like I feel like throughout this movie I got to feel like the main character a lot, whether good or bad. Like in the beginning for the first half of this movie, I find myself feeling exhausted
Oh, yes.
because that kid is just non-stop and I start feeling tired for her and then
Mhm.
tired myself of hearing the screaming, and then as things progress we go through confusion with her and also mixed feelings because they set it up so at the beginning like we don't really like the kid very much, but we get that she's the mother, so we're kind of feeling a lot of the same conflicted
Has to stick
feelings
it
that
out.
she is. Yeah.
You said put him on the curb. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but that's after he said, "Do you want to die?"
Isn't that a good? That line is so well delivered from that little kid. Like, do
Mhm.
you want to do? Like, how stupid are you, mom?
Mhm.
You're gonna fucking die. I'm trying to help you.
Yeah, it was very well delivered because it could be taken as double speak,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the.
Is that a threat?
Yeah, like, how the fuck am I supposed to read that? Yeah.
Right after he pushed her over too.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of the pacing?
I thought the pacing was great. It was very difficult because since you guys have seen the movie a couple of times now, you can really feel the structure of the movie now.
Hmm.
It's always very difficult watching something for the first
Fresh.
time because the road is being built in front of you. But
Hmm.
I didn't feel like it took any divergent paths that like made me be like, "Well, what are we doing here?" Like everything was very economical. With
Mm.
with itself. And no character lagged in any way. There was enough structural supporting cast that again I could read into the world a little bit deeper without them having to do too much exposition dumping. Like I can, like we were talking about with Claire and Amelia, like I can assume a lot based on just the small things that they've said to each other
Yep.
and their dynamic with each other, and I can then extrapolate that backwards, to the through the years of how this has been happening and how the problem probably just keeps manifesting a little harder every single year, right? Especially because the birthday is the catalyst or the trigger point in that
Hmm.
situation, right? So you'd imagine that every single year from, probably, I mean, the first year of Samuel's life, the first birthday, probably just super sad, right? You can imagine the first three of them would just be, oh, just heart wrenching every single time. And then on top of that, you have to put on a brave face and a happy face on top of that for your child. Like
Mm.
that would cause so much psychological baggage that if we did live in a universe, if we did and do live in a universe in this one where there are fantastical demons, let's say, that can like like leak into the psych sphere of humans and be like, oh, this lady is like super weak. Like
Hmm.
I can very easily get in here, right? I mean, she most certainly was dealt a bad enough hand that could, that could very well happen.
I remember. I think before I ever saw this movie, my mom recommended it to me,
Okay.
and I can see why.
Hmm.
Like, she was a single mom. She's always been a little frazzled on
Hmm.
the edges, And like I don't remember if she told me exactly why she liked it, but I knew watching it. I was like, "Oh, I get it."
Yeah.
She has nightmares about like trying to protect children in a house just because she juggled two boys by herself
Mhm.
for too long to this day.
I mean, it's
I mean,
got
I
it
would imagine it causes PTSD, right? I mean, like
lasting
those,
like.
yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, especially because it's like unlike say going to war, the tour never ends, right? It's like and it could, but and depending on your children, it can just get worse and worse because they don't have to listen to you after after being 6 years old. You know what I mean? Like literally, the reins are lost so quickly,
Hmm.
and at that point, it really just falls into how suggestible is your kid. Like
Mhm.
how, like, have you fostered a relationship that they either have enough respect for you where they'll just listen, or or are you amicable enough with them that they can cut you some slack? You know what I mean? Because there's different ways to run it.
Yeah.
Um and yeah, I mean, it seemed like she just really wanted to placate him, and
Oh yeah. She
it
was just trying to keep him quiet at any given moment.
yep,
Mhm.
and I mean, it can most certainly tell because I can only imagine how long it must have taken him to build that wooden catapult, right? How long it must have taken him to build that little wooden gun that he has, right?
The
She
dart
has to
gun.
have watched him do it, you know what I mean? Or at least been privy to the development of it happening, and she at no point tried to stop it, either because she was too tired from going to work, right? Or maybe she didn't think anything of like the potential dangers of it, right? Like um so I mean, just from there, it just goes to show that like either, yeah, either she's careless or she's overindulgent,
Yeah. I
you
mean,
know.
she's probably just to some degree checked out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can imagine that.
that's exactly what it feels like too, because and that is the notion that they gave when they were sitting at the park with Claire, right? And Claire was talking about her work, and or and she like couldn't remember anything about what was being said.
There's a
So
Mhm.
lot of like dazing off moments like that with the kid too. And I imagine that's what's been the state of things for some time. Because even when he's trying to like show her tricks and stuff, she's not looking at him, she's not listening, she's not paying attention.
even though he's got nothing in his hands. I mean, it's amazing.
Yep.
Nothing in those hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to take a quick shout out moment to great performances in this movie all the way around. Usually child actors leave a little bit to be desired in one way or another, but I really think this kid brings it, and I think the mom's performance is spectacular as
Oh,
well.
100%.
Yeah, look at this little badass Kevin McAllister version too, like out for blood.
Yeah.
This time the wet bandits are the ones being hunted.
But yeah, definitely. I agree with what you were saying about the pacing too. They made it very succinct
Hmm.
in a really positive way. I think just to kind of maximize the experience and enjoyment going through the movie.
Yeah,
We
this is a tight hour and a half, I believe. Like
Mhm.
right around there.
we skipped over you though when we went through what are your favorite things
Oh,
about this movie?
well, you mentioned most of them, and I think yeah, I mean, economical is a great word. There's no like wasted dialogue or scene. Everything is so tight. The story is so like well paced throughout. The whole first half is exhausting, and it pulls you in on that emotional level, and then the whole second half is pretty much nonstop action. Like even though it's scene by scene, it's like there's something always moving that plot towards the end. And then there's the whole like you said Home Alone, I was thinking Signs, but it is kind of a mixture of those two. Like the kid has the perfect catapult gun to hit his mom in the head with the baseball bat thing and the trip wire or whatever. So there's
Hmm.
all these not necessarily foreshadowing, but basically it's just so on the nose once it happens. um yeah, and then like this this sort of meta discussion about how how it might look to anthropomorphize uh struggling single mother's bitterness and exhaustion with the world around her. Like it's so well told as a story device, you know,
Hmm.
it just fits like so well, and I can see it. And I think maybe part of the reason I could see it was because I grew up with like a single mom in sort of that environment, so
Right.
it hits pretty close to home.
Yeah. You're privy to the psychological energy that emanates in a house that
Yeah,
has that kind of situation happening.
One tired parent.
You know?
I remember
And
my
again, if we did or do live in a universe, where spirits or nether creatures, you know what I mean, can look to try to take advantage from the psychologically vulnerable, it's like that's a main course meal, It's like
Mhm.
because not only do you mess with an individual in the present, but then you create scars that last until the next generation,
Mhm.
which is perfect for the creature because then at that point it's like, aha, like I've, created a situation where I can then come back, later. And then it becomes essentially like a generational demon, So yeah. Yeah, it works on a lot of angles. Like they could have actually like extended it in that way, right? Where it's like where perhaps the dad was like schizophrenic or something like that, and he mentioned like this curse that follows his family, you
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Fucking Payman, he's back. He's
Yeah.
back.
You mean Paimon.
Paimon,
No, Demon King Payman.
yeah.
He likes infanticide and tricks.
Yeah, and the odd magical trick.
Yeah. Nothing is as it seems.
Yeah, I was waiting for the Babadook to rip out of the TV for sure, straight up the Ring style.
Yeah, it does leave you. There are quite a few moments in this movie too where I feel like they don't spend a lot of time on scares, which is a little bit refreshing, honestly,
Mhm.
as much as I like that in a supernatural horror. But they do leave a lot of space for you to feel nervous about one.
I I think the fact that they didn't do a lot of scares kind of keeps keeps it well in line with the potential of schizophrenia, right? Because it's like
Yes.
it's just small pockets of fear, I mean, between like your both stream of consciousness run amok, like very well visualized by her watching the TV and like, watching like the black and white situation. And then like the Babadook is like spliced into the situation. It doesn't overtake the whole thing because the whole thing is its own thing, but her own mind and like what like those psychoses just like keep permeating and like injecting themselves into everything she sees.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, and it does that to us a little bit. I've noticed in the movie. I mean, 100% they do these things on purpose to set it up like that. But props,
Mhm.
because they leave a lot of things in the background for you to be like, "Is that the Babadook?"
Yeah.
So
Hanging coats and glove. Yeah.
yeah, that's another thing that I think that we kind of experience with her is that borderline paranoia.
Yeah.
When it came to the, because I was curious, because you mentioned, I think, the platform podcast about, no, it wasn't that, it was Hereditary. Because you were upset about the sneaky lady not making the chittering sounds. Was
Mhm.
there anything about those pockets of fear for you that hit you a little bit more in the like, ooh, kind of creepy, the creepers feelings?
Yeah, I mean every single one of the creepy like when he was doing I liked the him crawling on the wall thing, again because it
Yeah.
had the noises and everything alongside it. Yeah, exactly. Like I can really visualize myself being in a room, you know what I mean, and listening to something do like the crawling thing.
Good.
Yeah, it's very very scary.
Yes.
We're getting closer to
Um
something that scares Jose.
yeah, it's just difficult because it's like the ability to, I mean, to be able to scare me, you have to keep that consistently, you know what I mean, to the point that it's oppressive. And I don't know if like a movie can be good while having that much level of oppressiveness at the same time, right? Because
Yeah.
something has to give in some particular way. Like either the movie has to be kind of cheesy to the degree like that they're doing it like that, or like, yeah, I don't even know. Like,
Yeah, you might not like it if it was because it wouldn't be able to give you the flexibility that you need
To
to enjoy a
explore and
movie and to
mm.
world build and all of that.
yeah, exactly. Because then it'd just be a tale again, right? It
Mm.
would just be very, yeah, just a very self-contained situation.
Under the
Mm.
table jab at platform. Peeking at
hmm
it.
Cube is still on the table, and I am very much excited.
No,
for it.
it's gonna be the same conversation as
No,
platform.
it's gonna be better.
Well, I mean, I mean, I don't mind it. It's not that I have no problem with the tale. It's just the allegories they picked there. They didn't go far enough with them, in my personal
Mhm.
opinion.
Mhm.
Yeah, this one.
In this one, yeah, like even if you were to consider it as an allegory, it works great because again, you can take it from any direction. It's like if you're the kind of individual who believes in spirits, you know what I mean, and the ability for them to overtake you, this movie runs perfectly in that direction. If you're the kind of individual who only wants to believe in mental psychoses and like breakdowns and stuff, this movie is also great in that way because of the fact that everything happens from her perspective, as Hannah said. So the unreliableness of what we see is entirely based on her slow deterioration of mental capacity. So the movie covers itself from both angles and then bolsters itself from both angles at the same time. Yeah, it's very masterfully done, I feel.
Go watch it. But that leads me into another question for the linchpin of the podcast. One thing in the podcast we've never gone without. What change would you, as Jose, make to the movie
Break
to
out your
make it
pen.
just a little bit better?
To make it better for myself.
Yeah.
Oof. Yeah, I would say perhaps having the Babadook aspect be something that happened even before the movie started. Like
Would that
really
take the flexibility away to
I don't,
consider it like her psychosis?
I don't think so because at the end of the day, like even if it because it could still not be true, right? I mean, like if we could leave it to a very we could leave it in a very vague way, as I was saying that like maybe in the basement her husband had notes or maybe that Babadook book was his, right? Like that's where they
Mm.
found the book. Maybe
That'd be
he was
interesting.
an illustrator, right, that had a bit of a dark side and those are one of the last books that he wrote before he died. Thus you can kind of imbue like the aspects of him not being there alongside her stress, into the manifestations that one book, that the kid then finds and be like, my dad wrote this book. Like, I want to read it. You know what I mean? And then she reads it and be like, damn, this book's dark. Like, I don't know. Like,
Greg,
yeah.
Greg, what was going on, Greg? You
Oh,
never
well,
talked to me.
I thought his name was Oscar.
Yeah, you're right. It was
Yeah,
Oscar.
Oscar,
Matt
right?
definitely just made up a
I
name on
just
the
saw
fly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now you're confusing me. I was
You're
like,
like, who the fuck is
I already
Greg?
messed
I
up
don't
a name earlier, so don't do this
Isn't
to
there
me.
only 5
Yeah.
characters in this?
You didn't. You just dropped the name of the main character,
Right.
and we all went, "What?
Huh?
Who that?"
But I used it for his cousin, so that's why I messed up. But either way, that I think that would have been really cool. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because as it stands, I feel it is a little random. You know what I mean? Perhaps and perhaps it is to showcase the fact that literally we're catching them at a point where anything could have tipped her over. Like if we would have read a book about a different kind of like creature, it would have been that creature manifesting itself onto her, right? But I think that if it would have been a little nicer to be able to make it less arbitrary that the Babadook is the thing that ends up haunting her in the end.
Mm.
Because if we make it be connected to her, her husband, then it's two things she has to get past, right? Because not only does she have to get over, not necessarily get over, but come to terms with the fact that she has all of this like anxiety slash stress slash depression, alongside having to pretty much like not give up the memory of her husband, but stop wallowing in it, and which would then lead in perfectly to the end of the movie, wherein it actually leads to a very human conclusion that she can't do that, right? Like you can't get rid of the Babadook. Like some parts of the trauma that was her husband and him himself and everything will always be there in the basement, and she unfortunately still feels the compulsion to feed it, right?
Mm.
But she's doing it positively alongside her son, you know what I mean? And they're making it an activity together, and even at that point it would even also connect that line she said where he asks her like, can I see it, and she's like, when you're older, like it would
Mm.
it I feel all of that would just make it into a cleaner circle all around, because as it stands, that is like essentially like the one little chip in the whole arc of what I'm now that I've had time to process the whole movie as I've seen it. um because as it stands, it just feels like it's a bit just comes out of nowhere, like the concept of Mr. Babadook just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, that.
And if it would have hit closer to home, right? Because already she said that she's a writer, right? So I mean,
Well, maybe she wrote the book.
yeah, that would have been
They
really
said
cool
she did
too.
children's books.
That would have been really cool too, where like she finds the book. I mean, he finds the book in the basement, right? And she's like, "Oh yeah, I wrote this book," and like she starts reading it, right? But the book is different now from what she remembers having written.
No, actually, that's the perfect tie back because they mentioned at that party that she had written children's books and children's stories, and
Mhm.
she also, we've been talking about how she's been like completely spaced out, so it could have been like the first manifestation of her psychosis is she wrote and published a book.
Didn't even publish it, just
Or
put it
just had
together.
it, yeah, because it looked like it was like quite the self-published situation,
Yeah,
right? Like,
they made it a point to show her like flipping through the back end of the pages and the front end where there's no text,
Empty.
no
Mhm.
publisher, nothing like that. Just
yeah,
pure unbridled psychosis on the page.
which could have been perfect for either stemming from her husband,
Mhm.
or stemming from, I still feel that it would have been best coming from her husband because of the fact that he's dead. Those are things that are unresolved, right? Like it's just a situation that you'll never be able to get closure as to why he felt this way or what psychological issues he might have been going through at that time. Like this is just what
The
Mhm.
fact that the book just popped up out of nowhere though and ended up on her son's shelf, that makes me lean towards the idea that she created it. But at the same time, if we are saying the Babadook is a third party, you could also argue that the Babadook was already in their home because the kid was already weird about a monster, and fighting off monsters. And then once they read the book, it wouldn't be a different monster. It's like, oh, now the monster I've been afraid of has a name.
I see. Oh, it's possible. Yeah, it's very possible. I mean, you can.
Lots of options.
Yeah, you can
Yeah, I
most
had
certainly read it
canon.
in any of those types of ways.
Mhm.
It's just yeah. As it stands, that just the reason I want to do that is because it just feels like the Babadook uses the husband's imagery, right,
He
to
does.
mess with her. And but at the same time, it's like aside from him being dead, he doesn't really play an affecting role in the Babadook, you know? And I think just by having that little tie, you know what I mean, it could have worked in both directions because then she could have been like, or we could have used both ideas, where she thinks that he wrote the book, right? But then slowly but surely we come to actually realize that she wrote the book,
Mm.
right? And she's using him as a scapegoat to try to keep away from the fact that this book is a manifestation of how she fucking angry she is.
Nice M. Night Shyamalan twist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just like
Except
Signs.
it's quality.
No, that's a good point
Hey,
though,
Signs
because that's a
I
good
don't
point
know.
though.
Self-inserting yourself in that movie like that. Well, I don't know.
He's so fun. He's a fun little. It's like Stan Lee or like there's another good example. Kevin Smith. No, that doesn't really count.
I felt like Signs was.
He made himself
trying
a
to-
significant aspect of the movie. He's the man that killed the guy's wife.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, okay. But that's not important. Like, it's not important that she died. Is it? In Signs? Like, what's important is that she
That's the whole.
had the message. Right?
And not even then, because M. Night Shyamalan gives himself the line that helps him figure out the fact that they're, weak against water. It's like,
That's true.
God.
M. Night Shyamalan dropped
Oh,
in to give
God.
the answer
Yeah.
to the whole movie.
Mhm.
That's a good
I'm
point.
moving next to a lake.
I've got it all figured
Yeah.
out because I wrote the story.
So we won't be doing Signs on the Lethal Introspection podcast.
Well, we're
but
doing it now. All
That was
right.
a short version.
Yeah.
yeah, we did it.
Just flip the title card right now.
Split it. Slash
Yeah,
Signs.
Signs.
In the title.
Yeah, we'll cover it in 10 minutes. Don't worry. Mhm.
So
yeah, I'll for sure go back to church after I know that aliens exist now. Yeah, oh sure.
Stop calling me father.
I really felt like Signs was trying to tell me to go to church.
Well, Mel Gibson was, that's for sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%.
Mel Gibson with his Passion of the Christ sign.
He was going through a phase.
He's going,
He's been going through a phase for a long
his
time.
whole life is a phase.
Yeah. He said some really.
I mean, you star in what women want, and then it'll change you the way you view your life.
What are you saying about women?
Once
No,
you
what
can
I'm saying
hear
about
him
Mel
all the
Gibson,
time.
about his perception.
Yeah. That dude's he's a loony character. He's nuts. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So the Babadook. Do you wanna are we suffice to go to ratings? Do we dare?
Yeah, I think so. I
We
mean,
picked apart enough of it. Is there anything we've missed that would topple the rating?
is there anything that you guys think would make the movie any better? I gave my situation as to how I feel that the movie totally could have made the Babadook book be something connected to the husband, and it was just something that it was an opportunity not taken upon.
I like your through line. I also like how Hannah brought up that it's very possible, given that hint, that she made that book herself.
Mhm.
But I always had canoed it as like, this thing is like, I don't know, like an actual supernatural being. Because I don't know, she can float, and granted, maybe it's just her and her kid. Sure, there's all that. But I always like to lean into it a little bit. So I could get on board with what you were saying. How it would just be a stronger through line, and you could grab at it more, and you could point at it more. I like that.
I'm so attached to the idea that she wrote the book the more I think about it too. I know that that's just branching off in my own direction, but also I think she resents that kid a little bit. So she might
100%.
Because
Possessed
on the way to the
words are sober
hospital-
thoughts. All right, so
Why don't you just eat shit?
That'd be the best line in the
Can we make a t-shirt as merch that says
Yeah.
possessed words are sober thoughts?
yeah, seriously, we'll be sure to keep that one, write that one down right now, because honestly, if we're to believe it, right? The Babadook removes her filter and allows her to express her deep depression, anxiety, and resentment.
Yeah.
Because to be perfectly honest, even if from a third party perspective, I do feel like she's being a bit of a bad parent. I do still see the fact that she's trying her best,
Yeah.
you know? So,
Well, I
so
just think that like the fact that her husband died on the way to deliver their son has probably left a significant amount of resentment in her, and maybe in some deep, super screwed up part of her brain, she made that book just to fuck with him. She put it on his shelf. He's afraid of monsters. I like the psychosis vein. I'm taking
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it could really go in any direction. Yeah, because otherwise it just, again, too arbitrary, right? How did the book float into the house, right? You know,
Yeah, I mean, I really hate to do this in answer to your question because I'm sure I'll think of something later that for me could be better about this movie, but I just don't have anything right now. Like, at the end of the day, I like so much about this movie, and a ton of the things that I keep an eye out for in horror movies were done well here. So it's hard to come up with something that I would do to make this movie better on the fly.
Bleed that right into your rating.
I mean,
Okay.
I will. I'm sure you all know that I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 by this point.
Preach it.
I cannot say I can't think of anything to do to improve this movie and then be like, it's a 3 for
is there
me.
anything that could have made it scarier?
Ooh, yes. So I do think it could have been scarier. I don't know how they would have accomplished that. I think that, and I mean, I'm going to do this anyway, even though I know I say this kind of thing a lot. But for me, the Conjuring movies are really good at scary. Like they're just.
Face makeup's pretty much the same
Hmm?
between the nun demon and this Babadook. They have like the white, black eye kind of situation with the.
Yeah, they're probably cousins.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what The Conjuring doesn't do is they don't waste any time. Like they don't do the like
To the degree
working
that the
up
spirit will
demon.
give you its name, you know what I mean? Around
Yeah,
He
that
spells it out for you. I don't
that would be my note for The Conjuring is the actual resolution doesn't make any sense and it's like a happy ending thing and that bugs me, but I do love those movies just because I love how watching them feels. And while I love the Babadook, I think I would enjoy it a little bit more if I spent more time feeling scared or nervous. There's
Right.
my note.
I feel that, yeah, because The Conjuring 2 did go through my head as I was watching this movie, lightly, just because the dynamic of the single mother, but that one with more kids, right? Like was paralleled really, really great with this one, and The Conjuring actually showcases kind of what it would be like to have this situation with more kids, because then at that point you don't know whether the poltergeist is one of these kids, you know what I mean,
Mhm.
or like how even more razzled this lady would be if she had to deal with 3 more kids and she's already picking up knives without noticing, you know what I mean?
Actually, I know we only showed you The Conjuring 2 because we like that one better. But in The Conjuring 1, something very similar to this happens with the mother.
Oh, okay, okay.
And more kids, but very similar.
Yeah, now I'm wondering if he ripped that off. When did The Conjuring come out? After this, right?
Well, The Conjuring came from the story from that couple.
Yeah, loosely.
So,
Yeah,
yeah, so maybe this was loosely taken from.
that could be. This seems like it seems like there is definitely, I don't know, other themes that this is alluding to, if not stories, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, they started off with the 3 little pigs, right, and the wolf, and it kind of just feels like this one wants to be like a new dark fairy tale kind of situation,
Yeah.
I like that about it.
but more like for adults, where
Mhm.
it's like you're still, you can still be possessed, you know what I mean, and your stresses and adult anxieties and fears can leave you just as susceptible as a child would, you know what I mean, to be like overtaken in that kind of way, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the book really drives it home in that direction. Like seeing the book and how like just short, very few words and creepy it is. I like that like folktale bit.
Folky horror kind of.
Yeah. That they kind of put in there.
Yeah, I wish. It's tough to say. I wish you wouldn't have burnt the book, right?
That seems so dumb to me.
But at the same time, it's like it makes you wonder, is like, was the book even real? You know what I
Mhm.
mean? To that degree. Because I mean, it could very well
Yeah.
be that like she in her mind made up the book and she told the story of the Babadook to the kid,
Or
right?
maybe she'd burnt the book so that if she went to the police, they wouldn't be like, "Can we see the book?" And then they'd be like, "You clearly made this yourself."
Yeah, her hands were all gray, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I have a hard time like, did you really like put the charcoal in the grill, heat it up? Like you didn't just set it ablaze in your backyard. You went through that whole process
That's
cuz
fair because she used kerosene, didn't she, to like
yeah.
to,
Squirt it on
to
there.
squirt it on the
Yeah,
book.
why
That's a
was
And
her
good
hand
point
dirty?
because maybe it's the case that the second time we see the book, it's not real because she's the only one that sees it
Or
Right.
she taped it back together. I'm telling you, she made the book.
and added new pages.
Yeah,
that
she
could
wrote
be.
it in the first place, and the new pages were the same as before. So the
But
original
creepier.
author
you know,
added
or it
to
could
it.
just genuinely be one of those Tyler Durden moments where she's just standing there thinking that she's going through
Oh
the
man,
whole, you know what I
Could
mean?
be.
Like grabbing the book, reading it, thinking that she's seeing new pages, and then
that's not the only like you were saying with the black and white TV with the Babadook popping in it, like
Mhm.
very Fight Club esque.
yeah, it really was.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I really like the fact that I don't know whether she's possessed or just crazy, and whether that kid is actually safe. You know what I mean? Because again, they brushed off her murdering that dog way too easily in this movie. Holy shit!
It's
Yeah,
so
and
fucked up because by the time the movie's over, you almost forget, and then you're like, "Wait a
Yeah,
second."
honestly, yeah, like the
did
Child
do
Protective
some.
Services people are supposed to come through in another week, right? And be like, hey, didn't you used to have a dog? Like,
Well, and
No,
like, there's more like irreparable trauma.
you're crazy.
I don't know
Yeah,
what you're talking about. We've never had a dog.
No.
died of old age, buried in the backyard.
Wait, no, I mean we never had. Yeah, it's dead.
Well, and I mean, that kid's pretty young yet, He's gonna, as he ages, I mean, maybe not if they're actually like feeding a monster in their basement. Who knows how that works out or how much of that is real. But like, she did wake him up, like wielding a knife too. Like, there
Like you do.
definitely is trauma that has happened because whether or not it's a monster, how is he gonna ever feel 100% relaxed going forward, knowing that
Her mom
the
can snap
monster.
necks like that, Like,
Yeah, and the monster lives in the house. I don't want any more pets. Like,
There's lots of locks on that door now, so
mm-hmm.
he's not getting.
Which makes me wonder, right? I mean, from a perspective of psychosis, like it's terrible because they're feeding it. You know what I mean? Like there is no outside help that can allow them to break past the concept of just continually to bolt more locks on that door, right? So it's like it's a very bittersweet situation because like the tone makes it seem like they got over it, right? But it obviously everything else, you know what I mean, in terms of the context makes it seem like they're literally just having like a calm before another storm
you
kind
know
of
what I
thing.
think that's about though? Because like that whole you can never get rid of the Babadook, and in the book it says the more you deny, the stronger I get. I
Hmm.
really think it's like an ode to mental illness. Is it's like the more you pretend that's
Oh,
not going on and that's in the background, the worse it's going to be for you and the more damage it's going to do to your psyche. Whereas what they're doing at the end, sure, they're like feeding it, but just like worms and stuff. They're not like letting it control anything. I see it more as like acknowledging it.
it's that mantra of it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's essentially what it seems like she's come to realize about the Babadook. That it belongs to her, right? Which would add more credence to the idea that she wrote the book. Like the
Yeah.
Babadook belongs to her, and it is her responsibility to make sure that it doesn't overtake her. You know,
Well, yeah, and when she went down there, it
it
still
tried.
shook her. It
Yeah,
still scared her,
it
and
really, really, it still really, really tried, but it's like no, like
yeah, and she kept it under control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she has to like look it in the face.
And she shushed it
Yeah.
gently. She
Mhm.
shushed it.
Yeah. Which, goes to show that you can't have a heavy hand with yourself, if you're gonna be meta about it, right? It's
Yeah.
like there has to be firmness, but at the same time there has to be, a level of caring behind it, which can then be paralleled to her necessity for parenting, right? And
Mm.
in the same way that she has to be firm with the kid, but at the same time not, let it reach the degrees that he is like afraid for his life.
Mhm.
I mean, hopefully our line's a little bit before that point, but
Mhm.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna jump on the 5-star bandwagon as well. Just as far as horrors movies goes,
horrors movies
horrors
goes.
movies, multiple plural. This is top notch for me. I right up there with The Witch, the other greats that we've discussed before. I love the Coraline stop motion. I love the pacing. The dialogue is tight. The cinematography is wonderful. The acting's great.
Very
Nobody flubs.
stylized.
Yeah, very very unique to itself with the that stop motion, the pop up book stuff. Super cool. After 5 or 6 viewings now, there's nothing I there's nothing that I've been bored of. I've never like not enjoyed watching it. So
There's no real section that lags for you.
no, I
That's
loved
great.
it. Yeah. And even after this talk, I'm glad that you've liked sort of the same things that we have, and also your perspective has been the only thing so far that I'm like, yeah, that could have been better, like, a little bit like that. Yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, I most certainly try my best not to let what I perceive to be the potential betterness of a situation, mess with what's already what's already there.
Mhm.
Because everything could be better, especially after the fact, right? I mean, literally once I'm given all the information, it's just so much easier to try to, conjure up something else on top of what you've already done, as a creator yourself.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I think I'm gonna go with a 5 out of 5 as well.
Nice.
Uh
Woo!
I mean, I don't know. Like the only thing that I could maybe even come close to saying as a critique would be that it could be scarier,
I
Mhm.
but
agree.
at the same time it's like, I don't know. It seems difficult because something would have had to be lost at somewhere
Probably.
down the line, and it would have messed with the equilibrium of the psychosis and the supernatural aspect of it, while where right now where the tightrope that they ran made it so it was a very firm, you know morality tale you know about mental health, and also just having it be its own story,
Mhm.
with its own world, and enough world building elements inside of it that I was able to extrapolate and be like, okay, like these people did lead a whole other life before we started watching them right now, and what we're looking at is the culmination of all of that, of all of those issues prior to, you know, yeah, which it's great. I mean, it did its job marvelously, and I don't really think I have anything else aside from the suggestions that I gave already in terms of anything else I could really say about it. Yeah, because I mean, it doesn't seem like they were trying to go for franchising or anything like that. So it was very, even though there is world building, it's a very well insulated story. You know.
Good one off.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yep, yep. Especially again, I just keep. I mean, like it's really interesting how just tiny things, like tiny lines and scenes, can really like make the difference in terms of the adhesiveness of the story. Because
Yeah.
my mind is always just going back to the news report that she watched, right? And how that to me is a very linchpin aspect of being like, okay, like it could be something that only she's dealing with, or it could very well be something that is like an epidemic out there,
Mm.
Mhm.
where this malignant spirit, not necessarily the Babadook per se, but this manifestation that can take on whatever form is necessary for that, for the person at issue, what I mean, can lead them to infanticide, or
Yeah.
or whatever.
Pup aside.
Pupicide, yeah, which is 10 times
Absolutely.
worse.
An,
pretty much.
an across the board note to any movie makers if you listen to our podcast.
They all
Your viewers are smarter than you think. You don't have to monologue every detail of the roadmap at us. We want to think about it.
They do.
So, yeah, 5 out of 5 across the board. A great movie. Watch The Babadook. Go watch it right now. Give it a try
Go watch
if you
it right
haven't.
Baba, do it.
Baba, do it. And
All right, you got me.
and on that note, we will go ahead and wrap it up. So have a good night, everyone.
Good day and good night.
Good night.